Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. This episode of Entre Architect Podcast is supported by our generous sponsors, BetterHelp and Arcat.com. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Paul Keskeys, welcome to Entre Architect Podcast.
So good to finally be able to join you, Mark. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. We've been waiting a while to record this.
We have.
And I'm excited to get your thoughts. Let me introduce you for anybody who may not know you. Paul Keskeys is the editor-in-chief at Architizer. one of the world's most influential architecture media platforms. Paul has an impressive background. He's worked as an architect before transitioning to Architizer in 2015, where he progressed through various editorial roles to his current position. At Architizer, Paul leads a team of architectural journalists sharing stories about the world's best buildings and reaching a global audience. His approach combines his architectural expertise with his passion for storytelling, making complex architectural concepts accessible and engaging to a worldwide audience. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into Paul's unique perspective on architecture, his journey from practicing architecture to becoming a leading architectural journalist, and his insights into the future and the future of both architectural media and design and all the technology that's sort of surrounding it. I'm excited about this conversation. Good to have you here, Paul.
Great to be here. Yeah, it's always nice to take a moment to reflect backwards, all the way back to the beginning. And I often have to pinch myself. I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to do a job that I love. And yeah, I guess I often describe myself as a recovering architect because being an architect is hard, as everybody will know. But I'm lucky because I get to still enjoy architecture and exploring incredible design and innovation and talking to amazing designers and architects, but without actually having to do the hard task of practice. So yeah, I think I count myself very lucky, but I also hold an admiration and empathy for architects, which has definitely sort of put me in a good place to sit sort of at the cross section of architecture and media. So yeah, and in terms of how everything started for me.
Yeah, I would love to hear your origin story and sort of understand where you started, how you got started, and then how did it bring you to where you are today at Architizer?
Sure. I mean, we could go all the way back to...
Yeah, go all the way back. I want to know the whole story.
It's somewhat of a cliche, but when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Lego and I was obsessed with imagining new worlds and kind of creating things, drawing and modeling things. And, I didn't really think about where that could take me in terms of career. But when I was in my teenage years, I kind of zoned in on architecture as a subject that could combine... I liked the idea that it could combine creativity with more practical skills. And I liked the idea of that challenge. So I went to Edinburgh University and studied architecture there, architectural design. I did for those that are familiar with it, the RABA Part 1 and 2 in the UK. I did those in Edinburgh. And then I went to London and I worked as an architectural assistant. And while I was there, I studied for my Part 3, which is the sort of management practice and law section of the architecture licensing process in the UK to become a registered architect. And I finally managed to achieve that in 2011. So that was 8 years of study and 3 degrees. And at that point, I was exhausted already from architecture. So I took some time out. I traveled around the world. I did my very late gap year at that point in my 20s. I came back and I worked as an architect in Leicester in the UK for a period of time. But yeah, I think this is where the sort of transition began really, because I'd always loved writing and storytelling in different forms. And while I was in architecture, I was in a commercial practice, and everything that we were designing was, I say designing, it didn't really feel like super creative because we were working for big residential developers and every project was essentially just how many houses can you fit onto this site? How many, plots can we create in this sort of suburban area, various different parts of the UK? And I found that a little frustrating creatively. So I sort of decided to take that opportunity to explore this idea of, maybe I can write about my subject. And just as a hobby, really, I didn't really think that anything could come of it career-wise. But I started a blog. I was writing opinion pieces about buildings I liked and buildings I didn't like in a kind of critical way, but, a little bit entertaining, a little bit funny. I tried to be. During that period, the blog just started out on Facebook. So it was incredibly basic, just Facebook posts. And yeah, the Architizer editor in 2013 spotted a post of mine and reached out to me on Facebook and asked if I'd be interested in writing a column or something like that for Architizer because they were interested in getting the perspective of architecture from architects, from working architects, from the inside of the industry. And honestly, I thought it was some kind of wind up. I thought it was a scam because I didn't think that a big, like, inspiring company like Architizer, which I had admired for so long already, I didn't think that they could possibly just be sending me a Facebook message. But it turned out to be real. And so I started to write one article a week for them. I had a kind of a column, an op-ed column for a couple of years, 2013 to 2015, during which time I realized that storytelling and architectural storytelling was probably my calling. I was kind of enjoying my Sunday writing more than I was enjoying Monday to Friday combined. So that kind of like told me something. And I was kind of amazed that I was getting paid to do something that I would have done for free. So I always think that's a good sign if you can find a position like that. And long story short, took a long time to figure out visas and the legal process to get myself from the UK to New York on a working visa. But I was finally able to do that in 2015, at which point I was essentially just an editorial assistant, but the editor left and there wasn't an immediate obvious replacement for the editor. So they sort of said, can you stand in? Can you hold the fort, if you like, whilst we, think about, how we're going to build this team? And I just say yes to everything, even if it isn't necessarily the best idea. So I said yes. And yeah, I just kind of like learned on the job, and I was very fortunate. They gave me time, the Architizer leadership at that point. And yeah, I think they just saw, somebody that's willing to learn and kind of grow in a position, even if, it wasn't my immediate original plan. And the fact that I was an architect before and I had this sort of passion for the subject really carried me through those early years as I learned the trade of media, the editorial realm. And yeah, slowly I've evolved to become something of a mentor to other writers and other editors. I've got an amazing team. It's very much a team effort, what we do at Architizer. And yeah, found myself here as editor-in-chief, which is the dream because I still sort of feel like I'm learning. I'm still an intern in my mind in this field. So I think that's probably kind of a healthy attitude to have. But my subject, my knowledge of architecture from when I was practicing, I think still helps. And my enthusiasm, I'm just a huge nerd when it comes to architecture. So that really helps to get me through. And yeah, and then in terms of Architizer, what we do, I think hopefully a lot of readers are already familiar with us, but we're essentially a media platform for architectural journalism, as you say, telling the stories behind the world's best buildings and the people that bring them to life. So, that covers projects and, the amazing architects and the amazing firms that create these projects. But we also are very forward looking. So we kind of like to look at all the thousands of projects that are in our database because architects can actually upload their own projects. So there's user generated content coming into the site. And we're able to look at all of these projects and sort of surface trends and surface, signals and indicators of what are the pioneers, what are the innovators doing now, and what might that tell us about the future of practice. So I think, that's really exciting. You can kind of see an evolution year after year of the types of work that are coming into the platform. And obviously anything forward looking is speculative and we're not sure exactly what's coming next. But I think we get a lot of clues from the incredible creative minds that contribute to the site. So, and our little team, we just do our best to sort of join the dots and figure that out.
As editor-in-chief at Architizer, what's your day-to-day look like and what does your team look like?
My day-to-day, I'm really in a position of like looking at more kind of big picture projects now and strategy. So it's in a way a little less routine. It would have been easier to answer that question a couple of years ago, probably. Now it's very much a sort of position of guiding others. But as a team, I think we have a very small editorial team. There's essentially just 4 of us full time, but we have an army of incredible freelance writers that contribute as well. And I think, our kind of bread and butter is 2 articles every day that we look to publish, 10 per week. And they vary from collection articles, we call them collections. So that's basically, taking 10 projects or so many projects that are thematically linked and they might be surfacing a trend or some kind of indicator of the future of architecture. And one of our writers will create a piece around that, and they will sort of show these projects as a series of case studies to educate. It's a combination of education and inspiration for architects. So, it's a very visual medium, very visual platform. And so we'll put these sort of inspirational collections together. We have writers that do amazing op-eds, again, just based on what they're seeing coming in to the platform, what kind of projects are being completed each month. And then we also have an awards program, the A+ Awards. It's the world's largest architectural awards program. And that helps us also to surface the best of the best. We get incredible entries coming in from around the world. And then we'll look at, there's a popular choice vote. So we get hundreds of thousands of people voting for their favorite architecture from around the world. And that kind of gives you another really interesting indicator of, what are people drawn to and why might they be favoring one particular kind of project or one type of space over another. And we'll, create stories and write op-eds around what we think is going on there, what patterns are being revealed by the leading firms. So yeah, a lot of what we do is really, just trying to kind of identify those big picture trends, which I think is helpful for architecture firms to sort of see where the industry is heading, not just from a design perspective, but also from a kind of a commercial perspective. For example, there's been a huge rise in submissions in the awards for adaptive reuse projects and renovations and things like this. And there might be some firms out there that are, dedicated, they're doing new builds, and maybe they see there's this big rise in adaptive reuse and things, and maybe that can inform them to sort of pivot their marketing strategy and, focus in and become more specialized or kind of grow their expertise in transforming existing buildings and, thinking about sustainability around that. So yeah, there's kind of that sort of business benefit to kind of paying attention to what's coming out all the time as well.
You had mentioned adaptive reuse and renovations as a trend. What are some other trends that you're seeing now, which is very interesting to see adaptive reuse and renovations using basically reinventing old buildings for new uses at the same time of seeing a technology explosion in our industry. What are some of the other trends that you're seeing today at Architizer?
It's a great question. I think sustainability is obviously, it's been at the forefront of people's minds in the industry, but I think it's even more so at the forefront of people's minds in general, even if you're not within construction. And I think that's driving a lot of trends. So, they say that the most sustainable building is one that isn't built. So I think
Right.
that sort of indicates that the move towards adaptive reuse and renovation, especially because the world is so urbanized now, it's actually the buildings in the center of cities are probably more economically valuable to reinvent and transform rather than building on the outskirts in these huge, dense, sprawling cities. But in terms of like other sustainable trends, I think there's a lot of people kind of experimenting in material innovation related to technology. So thinking about additive design and 3D printing. I think 3D printing, people have been skeptical about it for a long time because it's sort of, seen as a little bit of a gimmick. But now you see, I went to Autodesk University last year, and I think, there are more serious projects and serious studios actually producing 3D printed materials now that are actually, to scale, and they can create modular multi-unit residential buildings. Some of them are actually going up in various parts of the States. I think that's super exciting. And, as soon as you get one or two firms that sort of prove that it's possible and their clients react the right way to these things, then you see, that everybody needs somebody to kind of dip their toe in the water. And then
Right.
once they've done that, you start to see it more and more commonly. So I think that's going to be something that we see more and more of. And then in terms of technology, AI has exploded. It's been kind of like a crazy year to see, like it's burst into the mainstream. But I think there's a lot of sort of mystery around it still in terms of how it can be best used or best harnessed. I think a lot of architects will be familiar with, how you can experiment with AI for image generation and sort of the early stage, the early sort of concept design stage, or even just sort of inspiration, ideation around different sort of ideas. But I think there's going to be more practical uses as we move forward in terms of the creative workflow from taking it from a concept all the way through to construction. There's already certain architects that are sort of harnessing a little bit more control over these AI tools, because when they first sort of exploded onto the scene last year, I think there was an issue around them producing quite random images and not really feeling like you have much control over these renderings that
Right.
some of these amazing tools produce. But now there's technology that can it can hold some control over the 3D model, and you're able to apply new materials without changing the form of the building. And, we're just sort of inching towards something that is actually usable and viable in practice. And then I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of tips over into construction too. And, thinking about robotics and thinking about the additive manufacturing of building materials and things like this. I can see the software advancements kind of linking up with the hardware advancements and really transforming the industry in ways that we can't even really imagine yet. But in the next 5 years, I think we could see big changes, because the one thing about the AI revolution is the pace of it is breathtaking. So, where we are now versus 6 months ago is pretty wild. So I think it's changing things. I think it's evolving quicker than when, for example, when CAD was first introduced, when BIM kind of became a thing. I think AI is sort of exponentially quicker in its evolution just because of its very nature. So yeah, all that's to say is like this conversation will probably be out of date in
Right.
6 months' time, but that's okay. We can all revisit it in 6 months. And I think, yeah, just keeping on top of these things and kind of continuing to learn about them is probably the best way for us all to go right now.
Yeah. We're recording this in January of 2024. It'll come out a couple of months later. So it'll be interesting to see what has happened in the next couple of months. With AI, there's lots of experimentation going on, right? Everybody's sort of dipping their toe in, as you said. You see some architects fully embracing it and getting very good at the different platforms and understanding the prompts of how to get exactly what they're looking to get, as exact as they can control it. It's not as easy as it looks. I mean, it's easy to plug in some prompt, some description and get something out, but it's very difficult to get what you want to have come out. Do you have any examples that you've seen through Architizer of projects that have been directly impacted by AI technology at this point?
That's a great question. I think there are tons of spectacular imagery coming out, and some of them have been uploaded to Architizer. And we can see we actually had a new awards program last summer called the Vision Awards, and it was all for kind of architectural representation. And so that included visualizations, photorealistic visualizations, and more illustrative, sort of diagrammatic works, hand drawings, physical models, but also AI generated images were actually introduced as a separate category for the first time. And we saw some wonderful works entered. I think Refik Anadol is an amazing example of this. He's an artist slash designer slash architect. So he's sitting at the intersection. And yeah, his work is AI driven, but he's really like playing with, his work is complex. So I'm probably going to oversimplify this massively. But when you look at it, it's kind of this incredible canvas. And it's fascinating about, in terms of how the imagery is generated. It's very dynamic, but it is ultimately kind of a piece of art, and it's actually, on a flat surface, and it's not really kind of like truly linked to the physical real world in terms of, a built project as yet. We do have Architecture plus AI introduced into this A+ award season that we're currently on. So I'm very intrigued to see, whether everything we see submitted is in the digital realm, or if there's anything that starts to come that is more in the 3D environment and it's sort of linking more to the real built world, because the category is eligible for either of these. It's left open deliberately to see what surfaces. But yeah, in terms of architects that I'm seeing kind of make progress towards linking this kind of fantastical image generation with the real world of construction and engineering, there's some great people to follow on LinkedIn. There's a guy called Tim Fu who used to work for Zaha Hadid Architects, but he now has his own practice. But Tim Fu, if you follow him on LinkedIn, you can see some of his amazing work in kind of research on how he's using AI to actually create real world proposals. I'm not sure what stage he's at in terms of like bringing one of those to life, but it's amazing work. There's a couple of others. Stefan Mikulic, I think is his name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's with the Archie Group. So he's working for a big name practice, and he is out there experimenting with AI in so many different ways. And Omar Noure, there's a few others. But yeah, I think everything is still in that highly experimental phase. And I think a lot of this is because the reality of architecture is it's technical in the extreme, and there are legal and sort of health and safety aspects to built construction that, is going to take a little bit more time for us to sort of bridge the gap. Using AI for design ideation is one thing, but, using it in a way that is going to actually help translate into a real building. I think, if you're a graphic designer, AI has already blown your industry out of the water. But I think with architecture, it's a little bit slower just because architecture is complicated. And I think we've seen that with building information modeling, right? It's like there are still many practices that don't do BIM even after 20 years of Autodesk telling us we should all use it all the time. So yeah, it's kind of like, we're quite notorious for slow adoption, but there are definitely people making moves out there. And I think I recommend looking at these people on LinkedIn because they do a lot of their experiments sort of on the side of practice, more as individuals rather than firms, rather than as representatives of their firms. So yeah, kind of looking out for those people, it can give you a really good idea of what can actually be achieved at the present moment. And then next week, they'll come up with something completely different because there'll be brand new tools and they'll be the first to be experimenting with them. So it's quite nice to sort of piggyback off somebody else's experiments. That's what I'm doing because I'm a writer and a journalist and I don't have time to actually do design experimentations too often. So I take on the role of a kind of observer and a storyteller for some of these people.
We'll have links to all of the people that Paul suggested that we look at on the show notes. So just go to the show notes and we'll have links to their work. Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. Architects, listen up. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world and is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. I know this community of small firm architects very well, and I see many of you struggling. That's why I reached out to this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote. And by filling out just a few questions, BetterHelp can match you with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in the show notes. It's betterhelp.com/architect. Just use that link, betterhelp.com/architect. Clicking that link helps support this podcast, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. So you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. If you need someone to talk to, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the show notes or visit betterhelp.com/architect. That's betterhelp.com/architect. Thank you to BetterHelp for supporting this podcast and for supporting our community of small firm architects. For over 30 years, ARCAT has been providing AEC professionals with high quality and up-to-date building product information. Today, ARCAT.com is much more than a product catalog, with BIM, CAD, and specifications created in collaboration with manufacturers. Beyond that, ARCAT.com also offers lead data, continuing education resources, newsletters featuring the latest projects and products, and don't forget, detailed podcasts. ARCAT.com is truly the one-stop shop for everything architecture. Try it out. Go to arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com. It's very interesting hearing you talk about sort of the experimental phase of AI and the images and the renderings that are being developed and not really directly impacting built work yet. And it reminds me of my time when I was in architecture school, Daniel Libeskind, and you mentioned Zaha Hadid, even Tom Main of Morphosis, you saw all those architects early on in their careers doing very creative artistic renderings, right? Before they were building things, they were experimenting with what forms could be through their own imagination. And then a decade later, they're building these buildings that they imagined 10 years earlier that they thought were impossible. They were just, dreams on renderings. And then they built them. And now you have the work of Zaha and Libeskind, and to see the work that they're building today. And so it'll be very interesting to follow these architects that are experimenting with AI and doing these amazing renderings and images to see what ultimately that evolves to become, right? The type of architecture that we may see a decade from now that will be inspired by the work that's being developed today using AI technology.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've named a few people there, but I think something that's sort of dramatically different around this sort of AI revolution that we're experiencing, and it's sort of also the source of a little bit of fear in the creative industry,
Yes,
is the fact that it is so accessible. And because a lot of it is text driven and you can use natural language to sort of create a new image, suddenly it's widening the pool of potential creators in a way I don't think we've ever seen before. But from my point of view, sort of on the sideline, like cheering everyone on, because I'm an optimist, tech optimist. I think that's exciting because that means the best will still surface, that the best still rise to the top, but the best might be, not somebody that is just an expert in Rhino and Grasshopper and knows exactly how to create, parametric algorithms and so on. Those people are still going to have an advantage in this new realm, I think. But, there might be some other people who might be less tech savvy, but have incredible ideas and are able to describe them in such a way and manipulate these tools to produce something that they could never produce before. And then who knows, maybe they team up with somebody who is more tech savvy. And, that's actually a new type of architectural practice where you have somebody who's a wordsmith and you have somebody who is, more adept at those sort of modeling tools. And the results could be something really magical, I think, in a way that wasn't possible before. So I think that's really exciting. And I think you're right. It's not as easy as sort of it can appear on the surface when it comes to prompting Midjourney or instructing ChatGPT. You still need to have a certain vocabulary and a certain understanding of concepts. You need to understand what mid-century means to be able to use it correctly, right, in the right moment.
Right.
You need to understand what modernism means, what style you might get if you put in Le Corbusier or Zaha or all of these different names. Then you can start to creatively combine unexpected architects with certain regional vernaculars and get completely unexpected results, which can spark whole new ideas. And I don't think just anyone can do that. So I think in terms of reassuring the architects out there, I think architects who have been trained to become very familiar with all of these ideas and these styles and this vocabulary, I think they still have the creative advantage. But I think that you just have to be brave and experiment and see where your kind of existing knowledge can be used and where you can kind of like keep this advantage going into this new era with these new tools.
Certainly, architecture will change in the future based on technology and AI. The process, clearly, as we're discussing here, the process of developing and designing architecture will change. What is your thought on the actual role of the architect in the process of creating buildings? How do you think that will change in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like this is a question that architects have been grappling with a very long time, probably 30 years, maybe 50 years in terms of a slight identity crisis. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we're sort of programmed to question ourselves all the time, right? Like from the very beginning of architecture school. So it's okay. It's okay to sort of wonder, what our core value is and how that can translate, especially as everything's evolving around us with technology. I think over the last 20, 30 years, like the position of the architect has become one of a coordinator and one of a communicator more than ever. And I think that will probably be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as great as all of these tools are, there's still a huge disconnect between many of them. And like I say, graphic design is one thing, but, architecture, taking an idea on paper into the real world and having it constructed with the right foundations and the right materials and figuring out, how the wall meets the floor and the windows slot in and, how all of these tiny little details are going to be worked out. Sure, AI might be able to help us with this moving forward, but there's still going to be someone to tie it all together. And I think actually the idea of the architect is that the master builder or that, the sort of the star architect, designing this incredible concept and then having other people take it to reality. I think that's been dead for a while, right? It's much more, you have to be more of a people person. You have to sort of negotiate and cooperate with others, engineers, interior designers, contractors, environmental consultants, and so on. I can't really see that role going away anytime soon. So I think it's important to keep embracing the idea that architects can be the conductor of a project. And there needs to be that person. I don't think that AI is going to be able to glue all those pieces together anytime soon. So yeah, in a funny way, I actually don't think the architect's role will change that much. I think that there's going to be huge efficiencies and changes on, the early stage of design for sure. How do you come to the optimal design concept? I think this has already been for a while, like the whole idea of generative design, where you can actually plug in certain project constraints and then the machine can bring you back 100 options and it will rank them for you and say, this one's the most energy efficient and this one's the most, ergonomic for your patients if it's a hospital or your customers if it's a restaurant, whatever it is. That's all very helpful. And I think that's going to change certain roles. Like I think the role of more junior members of staff, people coming out of even going through architecture school and kind of in that training phase, some of the skills that architecture students have to learn now are going to be unrecognizable to, architects like myself who studied just, 10, 15 years ago. So I think that part of the profession is going to change profoundly because we're going to need people to change how they think about how a design is formed and what drives that design. Yeah, but I think that the role of coordinator and the role of somebody overseeing all of the different players, all the different stakeholders, that's surely got to be the main value for architects. And I think that will be maintained.
Yeah, the human skills, right? The emotional connections, the communication skills, all those things that make us human will become even more important. They'll be differentiators of who we are as architects.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that, again, is not new, but architecture students don't realize when they first start that, they think it's all about design. They think it's all,
right.
It's really just a creative pursuit. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that a lot of students are ill prepared for the fact that actually you need to understand business and you need to understand how to work with other people because it's like the most collaborative, the most team-oriented profession that there is, even with the incredible machines and the incredible technology that are coming to us. So yeah, I think that that's still going to be the challenge is for, especially for young architects, is to know that they can't do it alone and they can't sit, even if they're brilliant with AI and they can create the most incredible images imaginable, the most amazing 3D models imaginable, that's still not going to be enough for them to achieve everything they want in C-build projects. And yeah, you got to figure out how to work with others and all the politics and the kind of negotiations and the conflict resolution that goes along with all of that. So yeah, as well as AI being a new module in university courses, they should also still bring in more courses around business and around the art of working with people.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that less than half of what we do as architects has to do with actually designing and building a building. Most of what we do is about the conducting of what you were talking about, sort of the communication skills and the human skills, the business skills. If you own your own business, even if you don't own your own business, understanding business and how business works makes you a more valuable employee. It's a very important part. And one of the reasons why architects struggle so much, because they don't understand business at every level, whether they're owning businesses or not. If they understood the basics, our profession would be stronger. And so I don't want to go on that soapbox because that's my preacher coming out.
It all comes back to that.
Yeah,
no matter what. It's a fundamental challenge that the profession has been facing for a long time. And also there's a lot of kind of struggling around, how do we get paid more? How do we articulate our value more? And I think that's the key to it. That's the key to unlocking it is really just getting everybody to think in a more sort of holistic, business savvy way about architecture as a profession, not just as a branch of design.
And being able to tell our individual stories. So it comes back to storytelling, right? It's important to understand the business side of it and the human side of it, but then be able to understand what we do and communicate it to the world individually, architect by architect, through platforms like Architizer, so the rest of the world can understand what we do, that we're not just drawing pretty pictures on paper.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think something that I love about our content, the most popular articles, the most popular pieces are those that include the very first sketch. There'll be an image of the sketch, and then there'll be an image of, how that translated into a rendering or whatever it might be, a model. And then finally the built project at the end, and sort of piecing it together and joining the dots and explaining the reasoning behind all of these design decisions in a way that is accessible to a huge audience and, the potential clients that are out there. And that, again, that will not go away. Sure, AI can produce some templated text for you, but ChatGPT is not going to be able to tell your story in the unique voice that you need on its own. So yeah, I think, even in the new age, storytelling is still going to be key. It really pulling back the curtain on your process. It just makes you as an architect authentic, honest. It shows your humility. It shows the challenges you go through, but it also shows the success at the end and the value that you can bring. So yeah, I encourage everybody to tell their stories or get in touch, and we can help you tell your stories through our platform and through the awards and everything as well. Again, I like to think that's a timeless skill that I would always advocate for across the board.
Yeah. Paul, you're talking to thousands of architects, primarily small firm architects, and a vast majority of them are business owners. What would you say is one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
I'll give you a couple. One is me being biased, because I would say, obviously, creating a free profile on architizer.com is a great idea, because it's a free portfolio site, essentially, and it automatically links you to a community of other like-minded small practices and a ton of potential clients and collaborators as well, as soon as you have visibility there. But outside of Architizer, I think I go back to LinkedIn. I've had an epiphany about LinkedIn over the last 6 months, which is forget all the other social media channels and just use LinkedIn. Because if you're thinking about work and business, sure, things like Instagram are great for showcasing incredible projects. It's great. It's very visually rich. But in terms of connecting with real people, LinkedIn is amazing. And you can use it, not just for building connections and networking with other architects, but I think you can actually use it as a platform to show that process that I was talking about.
Yeah.
People creating content there in an honest, authentic way, a thoughtful way about their process, becoming, their own thought leader. And you can do this as an individual as well. I think firm pages on LinkedIn are great, but I actually love to see individuals with, their real name and their title saying, what they went through that week and what was hard and what was inspiring, what they achieved. And also just being a mentor, this is what I learned. This is how you can succeed as well. I think that's great. And I think, following some of these people who are really on the cutting edge of innovation and technology, it's free education. And, education is very expensive, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
There are so many people giving incredible free advice and showing case studies and experiments that they're doing on that platform. So I think over time, just kind of grow your network there and just use it as an amazing place to kind of learn about business, but also about design workflows and all sorts of other things.
Yeah. LinkedIn has come a long way in the last, say, 10 years or so. I mean, it's massive evolution from what it used to be. And it really has become a primary place for community, that the feed has become a similar feed to Facebook without all the garbage and much more professional. And there's a lot of communication going on there. That's actually how you and I connected at LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. Great example.
Yeah, it worked out perfect for everybody and everybody listening. So yeah, LinkedIn's a great suggestion. His name is Paul Keskeys. You can learn more about Paul and Architizer at architizer.com. This episode is going to be released probably in mid to late March. A+ Awards should be getting close to revealing winners. Do you want to talk a little bit about A+ Awards and how we can get involved for next year?
Yeah, sure. So we're currently running the 12th A+ Awards season. By the time this goes live, it will be concluded, but we'll be in the judging stages and the public voting stages. So definitely I encourage everyone to keep an eye out on architizer.com for the big winners announcement, which will come in the spring. And it's the most inspiring day of the year. I would say hundreds of incredible projects, not just the winners, but the finalists. You get to see, all of the front runners and, all of these firms bringing new ideas to the table. And it's a visual feast. The photography is incredible. And it's a year-round program. We spend a long time through the summer celebrating the winners in various different forms and in different content pieces. The winners also get to be in print in a compendium. It's like the Bible of incredible architecture that we create every year. And then before you know it, we'll be into the 13th season. So if anyone's listening and they're interested in getting updates on the program for when it opens in the fall, then we can send a link to sign up for the newsletter, and then you can make sure that your firm is involved later this year. And it'd be wonderful to have you. Everybody's sort of bringing new ideas in their own ways, regardless of whether they're a one-person firm or a 1,000-person firm. We get people from every end of the spectrum, from like a Gensler and SOM all the way down to people that just started their practice last year, and everybody gets a chance. There's a public vote, so it's very democratic. And if you create amazing projects, then you have a chance to get recognized and get published in print. So it's an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, and many, many different categories. So you should go check out the categories, because you may actually qualify for one of the categories that you may not know that you qualify for.
Yeah, so many different ones around typology, but also sort of conceptual categories. And topically, one of the newest categories is architecture plus AI. So if anybody is experimenting with AI, definitely keep an eye on the winners for that and consider what you might enter next year. Who knows what AI will look like next year? So I'm sure that category will evolve in very interesting ways.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see what's happening with technology and AI in the next few years. It obviously will become ubiquitous. It'll be everywhere. It'll be in everything we do and everything we touch will have some sort of AI built into it. It'll be very interesting to look back and look at even using the word AI will be like carrying those big giant cell phone bricks that, we're talking about it like it's this unique individual thing, but it will be everywhere. It'll just become part of our life, and it'll just be part of the way we live. So it'll be interesting. Paul, thank you.
Absolutely. We'll have to touch base, maybe in 12 months and talk about how outdated this conversation became and have a new one all about all of those topics.
I would love to do that. I'll reach out in a year and we can do it all over again. Thank you for coming by here today. And thank you for the work that you do as editor-in-chief at Architizer. Architizer is a critical piece of telling the stories of what architects do. I think one of the things that we suffer as a profession is that we don't tell stories well enough. And Architizer is out there doing that for us, inspiring us to do it for ourselves, and giving us a platform where we can take the work that we do and promote it and put it out there further, faster. And so thank you for that, for the work that you do at Architizer. And thank you for coming by here and sharing your thoughts about technology and architecture at the Entree Architect podcast.
Really appreciate it. Well, I'd just like to say that, Architizer would not exist without the architects, so without the projects themselves. So it's a privilege. Like I said at the beginning, I'm the lucky one who gets to view and tell stories about these incredible designs. All these hardworking architects constantly iterating and innovating. So I'm fortunate, and I really appreciate having the time to join you on the podcast finally, Mark. It was awesome.
We'll do it again. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
If you liked this episode of Entree Architect Podcast, please share a link with a friend. That is the best way to help us grow. And that's how we have grown to serve thousands of architects just like you. Share a rating, write a review, but most important, share a link to this episode that you just listened to. Go send it off to a friend. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you to all our sponsors for this episode. Links to the sponsors and all the resources that we discussed today in today's episode, they're all found at entrearchitect.com/podcast. EntreArchitect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network, the next evolution of interactive media and resources for the AEC community and beyond. You can now earn continuing education credits for listening to this podcast, EntreArchitect Podcast. Select episodes are available for continuing education credit. Go learn more at gablemedia.com/members. And if you are a small firm architect, listen up, architects. Join us today at EntreArchitect Network, the worldwide organization for small firm entrepreneur architects. That's you, with monthly business training, business resources, special session webinars, mastermind groups, and a thriving community of small firm architects. Your peers are there. Hundreds of them are there already. We will provide you with the support and the encouragement that you need to succeed. Hey, and this is super exciting. This is new, coming in 2024, EntreArchitect Coaches. Yes, finally, after all these years, business coaching for small firm architects. It's coming to EntreArchitect Network in early 2024. Join us. Try EntreArchitect Network for free for 30 days. It's free for 30 days. Visit network.entrearchitect.com to learn more. That's network.entrearchitect.com to learn more. Try it. Come join us. Try it for 30 days. Thank you for listening to this episode of EntreArchitect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage. Love, learn, and share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.